Hey fam, it's your girl Nachi, and I'm here with.
Damaris, highly favored child of the Most High. Praise God.
Praise God. All right, so on this episode, we're going to talk about breaking cycles. I know that we hear this a lot, especially when we're talking about toxic traits or things that we didn't learn and want to start doing with our own generation. And sometimes, people go around and they think about, that's just the way things are, or, this is who we are. This is our culture. This is how we raise our children. This is, we've never learned how to manage our money. So we're going to take this time to kind of talk about some of these unhealthy cycles and how to identify them so that we can release these traits and start new cycles. It's not so much about breaking the cycles, but really starting new ones, right? Because you don't want to add that stress of, oh, I gotta break this cycle for my generation and generations to come.
Right. It's a
But
huge
starting
burden.
new,
It feels
right?
like it's a
It
huge
is.
burden.
It is. It is. So maybe thinking about it like it's starting new cycles for yourself and generations to come. So we're gonna have Damaris kick this off.
I'd like just to piggyback off of what you just said. I like to think of this as look, I'm out of the survive era. Like, I'm no longer surviving. I never felt like I was surviving, but I'm thriving. My ancestors
Yes.
got me here today because to thrive, not to be
Yes.
surviving. So that is how I'm just going to continue moving forward and live my life. And this is what I want our listeners to feel like too, that we are in a space of thriving, no longer surviving.
Absolutely. Yes. No.
And hopefully you never felt like you were just trying, you were just surviving, right? Situations are different for everyone, but it is also a mindset shift. And we need to be open to shifting that paradigm for us.
Yeah, and even if you were surviving at one point, know that your goal is to thrive eventually, not to your whole lifetime is around surviving what's going on around you. So I totally agree with what you're saying.
I like to think about when identifying unhealthy cycles in your lives. I think of it as, for me, the unofficial definition of insanity, meaning you're repeating the same actions and expecting a different result. And when if I'm doing the same thing and want something else, expecting a different result, but my actions haven't changed, then it's on me. Right? Like, this
Yeah.
is me. And this is about accountability. And so I have to ask myself the questions about what motivated the decision that I made, and truly being honest with myself in order to identify what it is that I'm doing that's not benefiting me, that's not, that no longer serves me. And that
Hmm.
really is about holding myself accountable for what I decide, for what I do. There's
Yeah.
none of that
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, well, it was so and so's fault that this relationship didn't work out, or, just didn't like me. They were racist or something. I'm just
Right.
saying that.
Right.
Like, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not true in every
Yeah.
case. But at what point do you hold yourself accountable for whatever results you have in your life?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how much of that how much of the external things do you let impact you? And so that's, for me, is how I identify unhealthy cycles in my life.
Yeah, it's funny because I jotted down here, you seem to be in the same type of predicament over and over again, sort of like Groundhog Day, where
Oh my God, we're saying
you
the same thing. Yes.
you wake up and you doing the same thing and you go to sleep and it's just this, you're repeating the same cycle day in and day out. And that's how I look at situations. If you find yourself in the same type of relationships or situations and you keep telling yourself, I don't know why I keep being in this, in this type of situation. People are crazy.
No, you crazy.
Just
Check yourself.
it's really about, like you said, taking accountability and recognizing your part in certain situations. And I also think too is just like really checking your energy, right?
Mm, yes.
Because your energy is going to dictate how everything what happens around you. And to me, if you find yourself in a low energy vibe type of place, know that things aren't going to always be on the up and up. Like things are always going to
Hmm.
happen. So you got to check yourself in terms of, why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel low all the time? Or why do I feel like I'm in this, you know, I'm not doing well at work, or I just don't like my job, or I don't like, the people that I'm around, or my housing situation is all fucked up, or, my relationship with my partner or even family. It's, I think, just going with what you were saying, it's just about taking inventory of yourself and kind of checking yourself and seeing where you are and why you are in that place. Because once you start to kind of dig through that, you'll start to realize, okay, I can release some of these things because I don't have to behave in this way. I don't have to deal with this situation as I've always done because it didn't work before. It didn't work for the people that I'm constantly around that does the same thing, or the family that continue to deal with situations in the same manner. You just got to look at it in that way and see, okay, how can I do things differently? And so that's just something else that you want to think about. It's just, what's your energetic level in terms of the situation you're in?
No, agreed. And if is connected to what you carry. When I think about when you don't address those things that you need to change, those cycles you need to break, it does manifest itself in your life. Like, don't
Mhm.
believe for 1 second that you not healing your trauma is not going to manifest and rear its head in different ways in your life.
Right.
If you
Right.
don't address that, it'll just become a problem in some, whether you start seeing it in your body physically,
Mhm.
carrying that kind of emotional burden, or, things tangibly not working out in your life. Like there are things happening. And so think about unhealed trauma. Me, like in life, when I recognize that's not addressed something in my life, it's
Mhm.
typically it'll show up when I seek validation outside of myself.
Mm. Yes, yes. Yeah.
That's how it shows up for me.
Mhm.
And part of that is like when I allow other people's opinions to dictate my choices, whether it's from my parents, other family members, friends, co-workers, all of that, like that's how it shows up in my life. I know for other people, it's different, but for me, that's when I recognize, oh, minute, why am I allowing this? Why do I
Mhm.
care what these people think?
Mhm. I mean, that could put you in a state of confusion when you're having to seek validation from so many different people.
Yeah,
That right
absolutely.
there will drive you crazy. And I think also too, just living your life unconsciously. I think about how sometimes we live in
Yes.
autopilot, right? Where it's just like, you automatically are doing things because it's what you
You're
know,
supposed to, right?
right? You're supposed to. And an example of this is when I think about your relationship with children, with your own children.
Hmm.
You think about I know when I'm in autopilot, I revert to the way things were handled with me with my children, right? So,
So like
because
when you
that's
were a kid,
just,
you're saying the way you were
yeah,
raised?
right,
Okay. Hmm.
right. The way I was raised is how it manifests with dealing with my own children because of I'm in autopilot. So
Yep.
if I'm not aware of what I'm doing and I'm just kind of I'm going and I'm operating in that autopilot phase, I'm gonna go to what I know, or what I'm used to,
Right.
or what I've learned, because it's easier, it's quick, I get
Sure.
in and out, right? It's almost like you get in and out of it. But you lose some of, you lose certain things when you do that. When you're an autopilot, you don't recognize how you treat someone else. You don't
Mm-hmm.
recognize how you may come across. You don't recognize how you probably manage a certain
Mm-hmm.
situation because you're just operating from a place of, this is how it's always been done. This is what I know. So I need to get this done, and this is what it is. And
Yeah,
this is
you're
how I'm
perpetuating a cycle, right? Because you're not being conscious. You're not
right.
consciously doing these things. So then you're not mindful or present in that moment of, would you really do this if you were present in that moment?
Right.
Would
Right.
you really make that decision? Would you really talk to your kid that way? Would you really, you know, say this or do take this action?
Mhm. Mhm.
Maybe, maybe not. But
Right.
it would then be your choice and not something that you learned or because this is the way we've always done it.
Right. And that's why, for me, when it comes with my children, I always take that approach of, okay, when I recognize that I've done something wrong or I said something wrong or I was, my
Hmm.
attitude was off, I always take that opportunity to talk to my children and apologize. And that's something that I never got.
Your
I
parents owe
never
us
got
apologies.
plenty,
Let me
plenty.
stop. They were fantastic, but I mean, come on,
Let me roll.
should
Eh, Look,
every
and this is what
parent should apologize to their kid. Period. Point
right,
blank. There are
right.
things that nobody's
Because
perfect.
no, because we're humans, and this is what I
Right.
tell my children all the time. I'm human. So I'm gonna fuck up sometimes. And I apologize.
But it's also good
So
that you
we have
remind
to
them of that you're
it's
human.
imp- it's important for me because as a
Hmm.
parent, as a child, I didn't recognize that in my own parents. But as a
Right.
mother, recognize that my parents were human and they were doing the best that they could with what they had.
Yes.
So, yes, I mean, I
This is why I accept their non apologies right now because I recognize that they're human and they make mistakes, even though they were like fantastic parents.
yes, yes, yes,
Watch your
yes.
mouth, anybody that tried to talk about my parents.
Right?
My parents are fantastic, but I mean, they were human. Yeah, they made mistakes.
Right. So they made mistakes, and the same thing here. Like I don't want that image of me being a superhero or a super mom.
Right.
I don't want that placement because I'm not superhuman. I'm not
Yep.
superhuman. So yes, I'm gonna make mistakes and I want my children to understand that as a human being, I do make mistakes, but as I make mistakes, I'm gonna own up to it. And that is something that I try to teach them. And so again, just kind of going back to avoiding living unconsciously and being more aware of your day to day and your interactions with other people and just, with how you deal with your situations because sometimes, you know, life happens and I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's important because this is how you pass it down generations. And it
Right.
is purely by the examples that you set and you sharing with your kids, look, I'm human just like you. I make mistakes
Mhm.
too. But also
Mhm.
you taking accountability and apologizing when appropriate.
Mhm.
And
Right.
the same way I think about like, yeah, as even though I have children, but my niece and my nephew, they're like my kids, my extended family, I'm still being watched. So it's an example that I set forward, the way I live.
Right.
They
Right.
see the
Right.
cycles that I try to break,
Mhm. Mhm.
and so they get to witness that firsthand and decide as they get older, like, oh, I remember when Titi did this, why
Right.
she did that, and how
Right. Right.
fantastic she looked, how what a great life she lived. Want to be just like Titi, you know?
Just like her.
Right,
Yes,
right. That's
yes.
what I want. That's what I'm gonna leave behind. I'm happy about that. But
And
but
no, and I was just gonna say, this is why I like the whole idea of starting new cycles because I don't think I've completely broken any cycles. Because again,
are you kidding me,
sometimes
Nachi? The way
I
you are
feel
with your
that
kids,
way.
you're smoking something.
I feel that way sometimes
Are you kidding
because
me? The way
yes.
you raise your kids, like, is so beautiful to see because you're learning along the way, and I love it. And you're vulnerable and you're honest about it, and you're like that with your kids. And yes, you get in their ass, like 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 our parents would have gotten in our ass, but it's
Right,
also
right,
different where you are you scale back where you feel like you need to, and
right.
that's a beautiful thing because we didn't have that luxury with our parents. We didn't have that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, that's true.
we were on a very tight leash. Also, and
Yeah.
I get it because we were being raised in New York City when it wasn't so nice.
It's still not nice,
No,
but
but not cheap compared to how we grew up. I mean, kids were getting pistol whipped on the train. Like, it's like, oh, for a chain. And I'm like, this is where I live.
right.
West.
Yeah.
Also, why we were raised the way we were raised. But give yourself grace. You are doing a phenomenal job.
Well, thank you, sister.
You're welcome.
I try.
Yes. I think about, so I feel like every generation level, well, for some lineages, I know our lineage, I've seen cycles broken. Your
Mhm.
father is a perfect, your father and your mother, meaning
Mhm.
father and our mother. I say it like they're not my
Like
peoples.
we have, yeah,
Yeah.
we have separate parents.
No,
Mhm.
but Bobby was an example of, he was a person that followed the beat of his own drum.
Yes.
He did things that many typical immigrant Dominicans would not have done.
Right.
Period, point
Yeah.
blank. He did not care what you thought, what you had to say. And people loved that about him. And they just embraced him and his uniqueness, regardless of whether or not they aligned with his opinions or how he thought.
Mhm. Mhm.
They loved him because he was who he was, and he was 10 toes down.
Right. Right. You couldn't tell.
And when he passed away, so many people came up to us and continued to say, one thing I remember about your father is that he lived his life his way. And I'm like,
Yes.
so that was an example to me of where we are right now that has influenced me so much right now. How I'm living is because
Mhm.
of Poppy's attitude. And
Right. Yeah.
so there are things that I've had to break relationships, do things that, many wouldn't do. And I just don't care because it works
Mhm.
for me and I love it. And I love it for
Mhm.
myself.
Mhm.
And I'm
Mhm.
doing this because this is how my father lived his life. And that's an example that I got to see. And I'm just like, okay, let me incorporate this in my life.
Right.
And your mother, real talk, she was, her sisters and family members, when they first came to this country, they got jobs immediately, but they worked in factories. Your mother said, I'm going to work in an office because I don't want to work in a factory.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
she did some technical training, well, not technical training, but like, one of those specialty schools,
Yes.
learned, became a bookkeeper, worked, had an office job till retirement. And
Mhm.
so, and the way she raised us, even though we grew up in a very traditional Latino household, she emphasized education for us and
Right.
really being independent in that way, and never forcing us to learn how to cook early in life. Like, I love
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
for me, I love that she never really required us to do any of that. And
Right.
I'm so,
Right.
I was happy about that because I'm like, that's not my thing. Like, I like doing different things. I like building stuff. I'm curious, and cooking ain't it. Yet, in our culture and what I've seen, our peers, like, they were like making rice and beans at 12. I'm like, good for you. Good on you.
Well, your mother tried to
She
make
tried
me
with you one time. I mean, she was hoping that you could just help her out a little bit, and you destroyed beans and the
Mm,
house stunk.
yeah,
We don't got
so
the time
then
actually to go into that story.
she just had me prepare the meats and stuff. So
Yes.
I wasn't full on cooking, but I did help prepare stuff so that it's ready when she got home. Thank you,
Congratulations. You're a
Damaris.
real
Thank you.
Dominican. Fuck out of here. Free for you.
You should be.
I'm not. That's why I picked up extracurricular activities so that we're getting home at the same time, mommy. Okay, next. Anyway, but those are examples. So it's important that I bring all that up just so that I know some people may think like, well, I don't know how I would break this in my generation. And the thing is, you are a living example for anyone around you, whether they're your family, friends. They see that.
Mhm.
The kids see
Mhm.
that. They will take that on. And again, when I think about Poppy's influence on other people's lives, when he passed away, so many people came up to us and said, "Your father, what he did for me really helped me in XYZ part of my life." Like, so even though you may not know presently, you are probably impacting more people than you know.
Yeah.
And the more you're authentic to yourself and aligned with what it is you should be doing, it comes through and people will see that. And
Yeah.
so to get into, especially for us and for our culture, what are some of those generational curses and traumas we need to heal from? And I'll start with this idea, especially with Dominicans, on this need to not be lazy, that there's
Oh
always
my gosh.
chores or errands to be done. Siempre hay oficio. And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Dominicans don't like to sit down. I'll say Dominican women. And they
Right.
think that if you're sitting down, if you're resting for like 5 minutes, you're lazy.
I
I'm
don't
assuming
like
this
to
has to
rest.
do like with some colonial shit and like, some slavery mindset of like, if you're resting for 1 second, you're lazy. I don't know. Like this is because it's ridiculous.
No, it's true. I don't like to rest. Even to this day, I don't like to rest around your mother because
The
I'm always
guilt.
feeling like she think I need to be doing something. And although she thinks I do too much, which is kind of funny. So she tries to do things and I don't need her to do anything, but she feels like she has to do something.
She doesn't know how to rest.
She doesn't. She doesn't.
And as your father would say, he's like, "Tú estás nerviosa," like this. Like, what? Chill
For no
out.
reason. Yes,
Be
yes.
still.
Right. Relax. Relax. You you don't need to just sit down for a second. And for her, it's just like, no, everything has to be done before I can sit down.
Yeah, crazy talk. The other thing is, and I think you can speak to this, but firstborn responsibilities. What was that like, Nachi?
Oh boy. I want to say, although we're what, 3 years apart, I felt like I didn't get, and I always talk about this that, whenever we used to play when we were younger, I was the one that would get in trouble if, something happened. I was the one that was getting in trouble, right?
Alfonsito's fault.
It was both of your faults.
You're playing yourself.
No, I'm not. I'm not. But I say this because they look to the oldest as you should know better. And I'm like, well, how? How should I know better? I'm a child like the rest of them. So why is it that I should know better when we're just having fun here? And so I feel like they always place more responsibilities, no matter the age, they place more responsibilities for firstborn because they look to the firstborns as you're our little helper. You're the mini adult for us. So you got to make sure that you take care of the younger ones, whether they're year two, three, or however many years apart. And
I
that
need
is
to play some
something.
violins. I have to
Oh,
play some
play the
violins.
violin.
Woo!
Yes.
Oh,
Play the
shots
whole
fired.
orchestra.
Okay. She's releasing, guys. She's releasing. Release, not you release. Yes, yes. Get it out.
Oh, I try like with my kids, I have, and I see it sometimes with myself when I do it my own. So I'm like, and I have to check myself because I'm like, oh, come on, Nachi. And my kids have a closer gap than you
Yeah.
and I. So the fact that I would even suggest, I've had to check myself, but again, realize like, oh, I get it. They did need help. But again, they're children. You can't expect the oldest of the children to be your little mini adult to
Look,
take
you got to
care of
grow up
things.
sometimes.
Yes, when it's time. When it's time to grow up. You need to
Responsibilities
learn.
build character.
Yeah, well, that is true, but it's unnecessary
Okay.
sometimes.
Fair
It's
enough.
not needed all the time.
No, no, no. I'm
You
glad you
need
got
to
it
let
out of your
children.
system.
Oh, wow. Okay, thank you, sis.
No, because it seems like it was heavy. And
No, it wasn't heavy. I just
oh,
wanted to
here we
point
go.
that out, that
Yes.
that's what happens when you're the oldest.
No, it's true. I mean, I don't know what that's like. I'm just the youngest, and it's a fantastic position to be in a family. The
Hmm.
baby.
The baby, which is, and I know this because your mother talks about her childhood all the time. She's the baby of her clan,
And she
and
always
she
says,
talks
they
about
always love
everybody
me.
me.
Oh, she
Nice.
she yeah, yeah, no. She's heavy on the
Tea.
baby. Oh, sounds like you're hating on your mom. But this also carries into the first first gen kid responsibilities. Now, first generation kids, I'll say, compared to some of our peers, we didn't have it in the same way where we were like assistants to our parents. I
Mhm,
think our
mhm.
parents were given their jobs, they had a good grasp of the English language, so
Yeah.
they
Mhm.
spoke English well, and I mean with an accent, but you know, well, in my opinion. And so I think they didn't rely on us as much as I know like some of our older cousins and
Yes.
other people
Mhm.
that were as friends growing up who've had to step in and do more translating for their parents and
Mhm.
really take on responsibilities of like, bill management,
Yeah.
on behalf of their parents because they're going to school, they're speaking English
Mhm.
primarily, or or they're bilingual children, and so they're able to communicate and translate as much as they can within their capacity as a kid, and that is our friends at the No Todo Se Cura con Vix podcast. They had a great episode recently about that, growing up as a first gen kid and being
Mhm.
that assistant, and
Mhm.
that going through that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And that has to be really difficult because can you imagine you're this young child having to translate some medical
yeah,
information
or trying to translate,
or
right, what the doctor's
or
telling your mom.
financial, yeah, so
Yeah.
some financial information.
Hmm.
It's confusing to you as a child, and now you have to try to translate this so that your parent can understand, or your aunt or
Yeah.
your uncle can understand what they're trying to say. And it's hard, but it was necessary for a lot of
Yes.
people.
And our people's, and kids in general, they for the love of their parents, for the love of their family, because
Mhm.
of what they've
Mhm.
sacrificed to
Yeah. Yeah.
be in this country, to be in this kind of environment. So we're a team like that. That's how families
Mhm.
are. Like we will make this happen. I think for us, we were just left to be more independent, right? Like I think about the biggest thing for me was when we were applying to colleges and applying for
Yeah.
financial aid. It was
Yeah.
doing that on my own because mommy and Bobby, they don't know like financial aid. I don't know.
Mhm.
They
Mhm.
went to different. Bobby
Yeah.
had a scholarship, was in Germany. Our
Mhm.
mom,
Mhm.
she went to a specialty school, and I'm sure paid out of pocket. So it was all very new for all of us, and so we had to take on kind of things where I just, when I look at other parents and or other guardians and they help their kids out with the FAFSA form, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
yes, good, yes. I'm like, you don't know how good you
Well,
have it that you have
yeah.
that kind of guidance.
And the thing is, we had older cousins who
That help, yes.
that were
Thank
able to
God.
help us. And again, it's not like that for many families,
No.
where you have older cousins who have already gone to college
Mm-hmm.
or know the process that can come to the younger ones to be like, okay, this is what you got to do,
Right.
so you can get ready. So yeah, it's a lot of first times for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think about my own children. When I'm looking into different opportunities for them, just overall, not even so much about college, but just like programs and
Oh
things,
yeah.
that they
Right.
can participate. I would say they don't understand the opportunity that they have because it's like my parents they didn't know what programs were out there for me to
No.
participate and take advantage of.
None
I
of
was like,
that.
I'm here doing this all for you so you can have a leg up. You should be appreciative. But
They don't
that be
even see
going
it. I
no,
know. I
they be
know.
going over their heads. They're like,
They're like,
whatever.
so I didn't ask for it. I'm like,
Right.
You looking for a backhand. But just kidding. We don't hit here. So that was one of those things that
Mhm,
that I
mhm.
just that stuck with me when I think about kind of what we had to do, what some of those things that we quasi have to heal from, right? Because it's like those are things that we shouldn't have done on our own, but it
Yeah,
was it is what it is. And
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I'm not I'm not mad about it. It's just interesting when I see other people or hear about other people's experiences. Like my husband, his mom, she got all the scholarships for him. Like she filled out, she did the
Wow.
research. Yeah. And I was just like, what? He's like, yeah. He said half of my tuition was paid by scholarships because she did
His
all of that
mother did it.
legwork. And I was
That's
like, and we didn't
crazy.
have the interwebs like we have now. So I'm
Right,
like,
right.
that's library, that's research. Like,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no went on to www. No,
Mhm. Right, right.
just letting you know the age we're at. Like, that
Right.
wasn't happening. You know,
Yep,
like the
yep.
dubs was a thing when you were going into college. I was like, oh yeah, this thing called email. I can
I can
email my
send
friends and
messages. Yes, I
yeah,
can send messages.
so ridiculous. But then I think I'd like to think I think about especially oh my god, in Latino households is this how different genders are treated
Oh
and
my
raised.
gosh.
This is like
Yes,
enraging to me, but this is
yes.
such a Latino thing. And I think a Caribbean thing too. I'm going to say it's a Caribbean thing because I've seen it with my friends from other
Mhm,
Caribbean backgrounds.
mhm, mhm.
Boys are coddled and
Yes.
they're allowed to do whatever the fuck they want. And the girls are raised to run the domestic side of the home. Boys can stay out late. They just have a different set of rules and had fewer restrictions. And it was exhausting to be a witness to it.
Yeah.
We were bro our brother is significantly older than us. And so
Mhm.
he only lived with us for a few years and already see, even though he was significantly older, so he of course just had fewer rules than we did.
So let me
The
no, let me
approach, yeah, the
go ahead,
approach
go
to
ahead.
him to see how it was different by the time I reached his age and what I remembered my
I
brother doing.
I saw it different immediately. Cause
Yeah.
let me tell you how. I wrote a whole letter.
Oh Lord. To your parents? They're like,
I
I
wasn't
love
writing
it.
it to them. I wasn't writing it to them. I just
Oh
wrote it
my
because I was
goodness, you were all
frustrated.
journaling. You were
Yes, I was
journaling.
I I was so
I love
frustrated because
this.
I was like, how he gonna come here and he don't wash no dishes, he
Mm,
don't put nothing away.
mm,
Like, that's crazy, right?
yeah,
So I wrote this all down on a piece of paper. And of
I love
course,
it.
back then mama used to clean our room. So she cleaned our room. She found this little letter that I wrote. But let me tell you how messed up your mother is.
Oh Lord.
She don't bring it up to me when she finds it. She decides to bring this up when we on our way somewhere. And it was me, her, and Friday. We walk it. And she was like, oh, you know what I found the other day?
Oh, she's fired. She said, "Let me tell
She's
you
But
about."
she's
She
not
said it in
even
front of our
talking to
brother.
yeah, she's not talking to me. She's talking to him. Like,
Wow.
she wrote this letter how I don't let you do any of the dishes and I don't let you put away stuff and I'm here like, oh shit.
Like the jig is up.
She
They
found my
found out.
letter. She found my letter. And they both keep keying it like she's so stupid.
Wow, wow, wow. Your mother
That's
would
how
never
I
call you
took it.
stupid, but that's how
No,
you
but that's
felt.
how I
Yep.
took it. Because I was like, instead of
Wow.
like coming to me and explaining whatever the situation, she was like, "Nah, fuck you.
Because
He
we
don't
were,
need to wash. He don't need to wash. You need to learn how to wash
mm-hmm.
dishes and clean up the kitchen and all that other stuff."
Because kids
And I
were
was
meant to
like,
be seen and not heard. So she's like,
"Yes,
I don't want to hear about your letter.
right. How you feeling some kind of way that your brother ain't partaking in any of the chores?"
Just so people know, he's like a solid, what, he's like a
He's
solid 12 years older than me. So he's like
he's
9
8.
older than you.
He's
Yeah,
8.
he's
Yeah, like
8.
8 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's 8 years
Okay.
older
So then
than
he would be
me.
11. But so, So just think about he's like 17 and
Yes.
we're like 9 and
Yes.
but nobody want to hear that though. I get it. Look,
Right,
look.
right.
But
But
this
I
is a
found
very Dominican
issues to
thing.
it. Right.
Yes,
And I found issues with it at that young age. Like, I didn't think that was normal. I was just like,
because
why
it's
is
not
it that
right.
he
He
no,
could
it's
have
not.
washed dishes, but it's
He
like, oh,
sure
he's
could
a
have.
boy, so he
Why he get
doesn't
the
do
pass?
chores, right? Girl, I'm on your
I
team.
love him to death, but
No, we
yeah.
love our brother.
I was like, this ain't right. This ain't right. And I wrote it in my little letter that your
Look
mother
at
ended up
you. You
writing.
were journaling. That came so natural to you.
Mm-hmm.
Except you
But I
didn't put your journal away.
oh wait, no. I didn't put it away. I wasn't smart. I just
It's
left
all
it out
right.
there for her to find, and she read it, and she was like, "Oh, okay. She don't pay
Yeah.
no rent up in here."
Right, right. I will say the next thing, the next area where I feel like it's again a generational curse is this not following your intuition, and it's not encouraged, and you're
Right.
raised to adhere to all authority. Your
Mm-hmm.
mother, your family, your
Yes.
parents,
Yes.
obviously government to some extent,
Mm-hmm.
police.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it really then conditions you to easily just become sheep.
Right.
And
No, it's true.
and I, and it starts with this, oh, us being obedient to our parents, and this kids are seen not heard. And that was an example that you just kind of shared right now with mommy, where she didn't even acknowledge your feelings and didn't talk to you
Right.
directly about it. She
Mm-hmm.
talked about it in front of you to our
Right.
brother.
Like, bitch, I read
Yeah,
your letter.
like, yeah, she's like, right, she's like, and this is not a thing. She's like,
You better get
unacknowledged.
over it. Yes, you better get
Right,
over it because you're still gonna wash
right,
them dishes.
right. And I will say, like, at least for this last bit about like not following your intuition, it's always like, okay, we were expected to go to school, get good grades, and yeah, you're going to college.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to college, you're going to be doing something. Like,
Right.
there was always
Mm-hmm.
like, there's never this, oh, let me explore, let me follow where my
Yeah.
intuition goes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, which was weird because it was not in alignment with how your father necessarily lived his life, because he was a perfect example of someone who lived his life
Mm-hmm.
following his intuition, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I think we are the way we are right now with,
Mm-hmm.
okay, oh, we should explore this, let's do this podcast,
Right. Right.
let's go with our gut. But it definitely conflicts with how we were raised in other aspects,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
no, you need to listen to your elders, you need to listen to family's always first. No,
Mm-hmm.
not if
Mm-hmm.
family's trash. I mean, our family's
Right.
not trash, but
But
this
yeah.
idea of like, oh, you let things slide because, oh, this is your family. No, fuck that. It's your self-respect.
Mm-hmm.
You need to love
Mm-hmm.
yourself the most and
Yeah.
the best.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. No, I totally agree with that. And I see that in myself sometimes, especially when I'm in a place of I don't know what to do, right? Like what should I be doing next or how should I do this? And it takes me back and I have to, like take a step back, but it does take me back to and I say this to my kids now, where while our parents were really pushing us, like we knew the next step after high school was like you had to go to college. There was no oh, I want to take a year off so I can figure things out. It's like that was your next step. But like I just recently had a conversation with my daughter and I said to her, I know that we talk about education and education is important, but it's the quality of education that you get, right? And we know that the school system here in this country is not the greatest, in my opinion. And so I always tell her it's a game. It's an end. It's an ends to a mean, and I try to like instill in her because it can be very confusing when
Right.
you're pushing one agenda and then you're like, well, follow your intuition, and
Right.
you should be following
My
your
intuition is don't
intuition,
go to school. No,
right?
bitch.
Right,
No, no, we going to
right,
school.
right. But it's like also teaching them, like, okay, it's about using the system to your benefit also, right? And it's like letting them know that that's what it is and making those choices based off of that versus no, your next step is to go to college and I don't want to have a discussion about it. Like no.
Right.
That's,
Right.
that's not how. When you open that up for discussion, it's easier for for children to develop their intuition and follow it
Yes.
versus with us, it probably like, yes, we followed it to an extent, but I
To an
think,
extent. Hmm.
yeah, I think as we got older and started seeing things and our eyes started opening, we started realizing that no, our intuition is leading us and that's what we should be following and not what everybody else is trying to dictate for us.
Yes.
And that was based off of how we were raised. It's like you said, we're following these
Hmm.
authoritative figures in our lives that tell us or have told us that this is what you need to do. This is how you need to, this should be your next step. This is what you should be doing. And so
Hmm.
we follow that. And I'll say that for myself, that's how it's been. It's like, well, they said that I needed to,
Yeah.
you know, I need to start thinking about starting a family and getting married and all this stuff. Okay, so that was my next step. It wasn't something that I was really, striving for at that moment. So again, it's like opening it up for your children to really think about, or, the next generation to really start thinking about, like critically thinking, like developing those
Yeah.
critical thinking skills where it's like, okay, what's in front of me and what's my best option? What's, kind of following my
Hmm.
intuition and following that path that my heart is leading me to versus something that someone is dictating me to do. So I totally agree with what you were saying.
And that's how you break a cycle though.
Mhm.
Right? You just sit there right there with your kids. It's like, yeah, look, this it's a rigged system. This is what we got to do to get to certain points in our life, but you have different means of going
Right.
about it
Right.
too.
Mhm.
And so the idea of breaking a cycle is changing the narrative of your journey.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's how I
Mhm.
view it, right? That's how you can break a cycle, not to have it dictated by
Mhm.
others,
Mhm.
and which leads to no more of a blame game.
Right.
At some point, you can't say, it's because my mommy and daddy didn't love me no more. I mean, and I'm not trying to diminish that for anybody, but I'm saying at some point in your life, you will have to learn to heal that on your own, get closure on your
Mhm.
own, not rely on others for
Mhm.
that. Go about and own this for
Yep.
yourself.
Yep.
You that it's not going to change. Nothing in your life is going to change until you
Yep.
do that. Until you decide to make those changes the way that it works for you, the way that it aligns for
Mhm.
you,
Mhm.
which is going to be different for
Yeah.
everyone,
Yeah.
right? But it starts with listening to yourself. I think it doesn't have to be
No,
complicated.
not at all.
For some people, yes, you may need to go to therapy, and therapy is also not meant to be done for your entire life. It's meant to be done for a specific time period for things in your life,
Mhm.
but there's an end in sight. I don't go to therapy, but I go to my sister. She is my therapist. That works for
Right.
me.
Right. Right.
And I'm also, in real talk, I'm very honest with
Mhm.
myself.
Mhm. Yeah.
Brutally so. I mean, I don't tell people what I say to myself and what's going on in my
Right.
head. When I think about, oh, this didn't go the way I wanted it to because of, why
Mhm.
didn't it?
Mhm.
Let me think
Mhm.
through this. What were my
Yeah.
actions? Why did I let this? And even if I didn't get the result that I want, why am I bent out of
Right.
shape?
Right. Right.
Do I not trust the path that I'm supposed to be
Mhm.
on?
Mhm.
I started the show with saying that I'm a highly favored child of the Most
Okay.
High.
And that's what it is.
So I need to walk that
Amen.
way.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
I think what we try to do, at least you and I mean, it's really like I want to see the next generation. And this is really about my younger cousins, my niece and nephew. It's like I want to see them move different and do
Yeah.
better for our
Yep.
lineage.
Yep.
We come from some fantastic DNA,
Yes, we do.
and it is because of my ancestors that I thrive. So I think it can be very simple in terms of when you start to identify those things that are cycles in your life, they're generational cycles, they're or that no longer work or serve you
Mm-hmm.
and your family. It's about things that we always
Yeah.
talk about: setting
Yeah.
boundaries,
Yeah.
prioritizing
Yep.
self-care, saying
Yeah.
no,
It's all
not just to drugs. But y'all may still say yes to drugs, which is okay. It's
right.
not my business.
Right.
No judgment. I
Right.
don't care. But I'm just saying, if you were a kid from the 80s,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know. But saying
Right.
no, period,
Yeah.
full stop, to things that you can't do, you don't want to do. If you don't want to do something and your body's telling you not to do it, that is your intuition. That's telling you don't do it. It doesn't work for you. It doesn't align for you. Who cares if it aligns for your sister?
Right. No, it's true.
Oh, but I know, and that's what I love about you, because you don't ever expect me to ever cross my own
No.
boundaries.
No.
The same as I wouldn't want you to do that for
Mm-hmm.
me. I mean, maybe not after the second time,
You
but
said maybe not after the second time, bitch. Shut up.
no. I know, right? But you'll get the answers that you want if you're being still and you're being present.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to do that in this day and time where you feel like you always have to be on, you're always on a device. But you need to carve out time in your day when you are not on your device, you do not have the computer on, you're looking out the
Mm-hmm.
window, you're reading a
Mm-hmm.
book, you're doing something focused on the present.
Yes.
How you do it, it's on you. But you need to do it, because if you don't, you're living an unconscious
Yeah.
life. You're an
Yeah.
NPC. Are you a main character or are
Wow.
you an NPC?
Wow.
That's it.
Figure it out.
Like, if you're just going through life, going through the motions, you're a non-playing
Mm-hmm.
character.
You letting things happen to
Okay?
you, and then you want to blame
Yeah.
everyone else but
Eh,
yourself. Yeah.
nah, not happening. Not on my
Okay.
watch, as a Yana would say. But, you know, it's on your watch. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's up to you.
It's about changing your mindset. It's making that
Yeah.
choice of seeing things for what it really is, and
Yes.
making that
Yes.
that choice to make a change. And it starts with you. You don't have
Yeah.
to wait for something. And again, I talk about, you know, it's about starting new cycles. You don't have to worry about like, oh, I gotta break this cycle, this generational curse.
Right.
You don't have to,
To break it, but you could
but
just, right. You don't have
you
to,
could diminish it with every moment and
yes, as much as
and
possible.
with every step you take. You are breaking it. Know that.
Yes. Praise God. Yes. No, thank you for that, sister. And I think that's a nice way to kind of just end this episode, because there's a lot that we talked about it as far as the generational curses that we've experienced, how we choose to diminish them,
Hmm.
or if not, totally end those cycles and starting new ones.
Hmm.
And so I really, the folks, our listeners that have tuned in, that there's something from this conversation that resonated with you. And if not, hopefully you know of someone that it can resonate with and you can share this episode with them. But as always, we like to close out with, we recognize there's a lot of noise out there, but our message is consistent. Stop getting distracted by the smoke and mirrors. Tune out the noise and focus on your divine purpose in life. Vibrate higher to elevate your frequency. And always, thank you for listening.